I've ticked off the high priority tasks that I wanted to tick off for the day. And I've got a few hours where I'm just sitting around or fucking watching something stupid on YouTube or whatever it may be. And there's always that little voice going like, you could be doing something different at the moment, or you could be working on this, or you're wasting your time and stuff. But I've definitely gotten a lot better at that over the last few years, I think, to the point now where I can, have those focus hours or whatever, and then be able to actually switch off a lot more. Like going on a holiday, for example, in the past, there's like I obviously love spending time away and traveling and stuff, but it used to do my fucking head in, like no structure and knowing that I'm not working at all or I'm not training as hard and stuff really used to play on my mind a lot. And it gets to the end of the trip and I'd be like, well, fuck, I've just kind of been a bit of a lose-lose there. Like I haven't really enjoyed any time off, but I've also spent a lot of the time probably either being annoying to my partner or, still not doing any work either. So whereas now I can kind of have those days where I switch off.
This week we talked to personal trainer and health and fitness guru, Danny Kennedy, also known as DK, one of our close friends who I think this might be the third time on his show. And we talk more about his own personal experience and challenges with mental health, juggling life in the 21st century, keeping himself busy, some of his kind of childhood wounds and how they show up, setting yourself up for 2023 and a lot more. Enjoy the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Momentum Lifestyle Podcast by myself, Blake Worrell-Thompson.
And me, Genoa Van Keekum. Momentum is a men's wellbeing and performance community dedicated to helping men be better.
Each week we deep dive with your favorite thought leaders and experts from around the world to get their insights to help you be better. Enjoy the episode. Now, guys, before we get started on this week's podcast, I want to talk to you about our Momentum Mastermind. The Mastermind is our 12-month program for men who want to surround themselves with other committed men, all with similar interests, values, and goals. Whether you're looking to build or grow a profitable lifestyle business, develop financial freedom, get in the best shape of your life, or create an intimate and epic relationship, the Mastermind is perfect for those who are looking to have it all. We know that to create these results and this kind of lifestyle on your own can be super challenging. So join now for your free 30-day trial. Simply visit our website, www.themomentumlifestyle.com.au. Up the top, you'll see a section for programs. Click on the programs, you'll see our mastermind, and you can sign up there now for your free 30-day trial valued at $1,000. We look forward to seeing you part of the mastermind. Danny Kennedy, welcome to the podcast.
Like, thanks for having me on, mate.
Is it round two or round three?
I don't know, round 2 or 3. I've got a shocking
Yeah. I think you're the only one. At least. Oh, yeah, I think you're the only one. So it's good to a beautiful small group of you that have come back for round 2. Mate, a lot that I want to talk about today, and probably a different angle to many of the angles that you've touched on around health and fitness, but I'm really interested in mindset, mental health, and your own mental health and how that all ties into physical health, and also some insights and tips into how best for people to set themselves up for 2023. But before we get stuck into all of that, can you give the guys a 60 to 90 second spiel on you and what you're all about?
For sure. So I've been a personal trainer since 2013. That quickly evolved into online coaching as well. So the online side of things has evolved a lot over the years, up until this point now where I've got a coaching app. Been pretty fortunate to work alongside the girls from Keep It Cleaner as well. So that's been a great way to reach a larger audience and probably different audience than what I would typically work with. 2016, I started the Fitness and Lifestyle podcast, which has been something that I've really kind of fallen in love with and continued to evolve. So these days, split my time between face-to-face personal training, a lot of online coaching, podcasting, and then over the last couple of years, or probably the last 5 or 6 years, really done a deep dive on my own mental health and a lot of development work, and found a lot of joy in having conversations with people around the things that have worked for me and the learnings that I've had around personal development and self-improvement, and have now kind of found a big passion for being able to share that experience with other people and hopefully make a bit of a difference on a different scale than just the physical side of things. So starting to do a bit of mentoring and just sharing a lot of my experiences, as I said, through it online. membership and just conversations with current clients that I've already been training for years and whatnot, to try and have a bit more of an impact. I just found I was, I'm pushing this 60 to 90 seconds here, but I found I was getting to the point where I was very confident in my ability to teach people, strength training and nutrition. And I absolutely love that. And I love seeing the changes people make, but you start to pick up on a lot of patterns in time as to why people aren't able to use the tools that you're giving them to achieve the results they want, and experience with myself. So now I'm just kind of continuing to share any of the experiences I have, and pass those on to my audience and hopefully have even more of an impact.
That was definitely over 60 to 90 seconds, but it was still really good. So good insights. What was the catalyst for you deep diving into your own mental health and mindset 6 years ago? What happened around that time that became a piece for you to explore?
Very early on, like when I was still in school and whatnot, I was never very confident, very much so a people pleaser. Had a lot of, I guess you could say, disappointments on the sports side of things, and started to just naturally build up quite a strong resilience towards that. But also everything was kind of like surface level. Like, as I said, it was people pleaser. It was just kind of making sure that I was trying to fit in. Never really focused too much on the things that I genuinely enjoyed or found joy from. It was always trying to, as I said, just fit in. And I think, over the time, I definitely improved on that. I think around year 12, I just had a massive mindset shift. I'm not too sure what it was, but I just got to the point where I just couldn't give a fuck anymore about what other people thought of me, and really started to follow my own path. And even that in itself, I saw how much of a difference it made to my mental health and my happiness, and even just like the success I was having once I finally started to just do what I was genuinely passionate about without any regard for the opinion of others. And then a couple years into, I would say probably around 2016, 2017, I don't know, I was just having a fair bit of anxiety and stuff. Was definitely an overthinker. At that point, as you'd probably tell by now, like I was deep into the fitness and physical side of things and was very confident with that, but had never really touched on anything to do with mental health, whether it be meditation or journaling or any form of self-reflection. And then I got a book, Christmas of 2016, I think it was. It was The Greatness Guide by Robin Sharma. And that was the first time I'd read any form of like personal development content. And I just hated reading. I still do, to be honest, but if it's good enough, I'll plow through it. But I read that, and it just kind of, I think everyone who gets into the personal development space, whether it's just your own self-improvement or whether it's coaching, you have that kind of moment where it's just like, holy fuck, I've just opened up an absolute new world here. And it's a really awesome feeling. And it just kind of gave me a massive self-realization that there was so many things that I could work on. And just reading the book itself made me feel so good, and just putting perspective on things and thinking about certain things that I'd never thought of in that way before. And from that point onwards, I just kind of really pushed on with that. I just started really searching out for different books, different people to consume their content online. 2017, I made it a goal to meditate every day. And up until that point, and even now, I'm not typically someone who I don't really enjoy sitting down for too long or not doing stuff. So for me, it was quite difficult at the start, but it was a goal to get through that first year. And then as I started to progress with it and I guess practice meditation more often and started to see the benefits of it and how it made me feel and whatnot, I just fell in love with that. And since then, I've just kind of kept reaching for new ways to tap into, I guess, the subconscious side of things, ways to take care of my mental health, which is then obviously transitioned into improving physical health a lot as well. And just dealing with the shit that I've always dealt with in a much more efficient way, like whether it be setbacks, whether it be negative people, disappointments with work or sporting achievements, whatever it may be, and just adding those tools to the toolkit. And I don't know, I still have days where I feel anxious or whatever, but I think the biggest difference now is I have so many tools in my toolkit to deal with it in a more effective way, and not waiting now, I guess, like I was, like, as I said, 2017, 2016, I felt like it kind of just got to a point where I was like, fuck, I need to do something because it's just too much. Whereas now I'm very big on, even on the days that I feel really good, just trying to find a bit of a routine for myself that instead of waiting for it to get bad, just probably, I guess, making it more of a preventative practice more than anything. And just starting to understand, like, as I said, like I got into that early, but it's only been probably the last 2 to 3 years where I've then reached like that next level of consciousness where it's like there's even another part of this that I never even considered or tapped into as well. So it's just like as you know, we've spoken about before when you came on my show, it's just like a never ending journey, and it's exciting. I think that was the thing with the fitness side of things. That's also something you always have to keep learning with. And that's something that I love doing. But you get to the point where it's like, gets a little bit stale in a way, especially on the impact side of things. So for me now, it's just exciting and motivating every day to just figure out new ways to tap into new levels of consciousness or find practices that make me feel really good mentally and physically, and then hopefully share that with other people as well.
A lot of people be able to resonate with the people pleasing and fitting in bit. And obviously you went through that early on in terms of that transition. What was the dialogue for you like, if you can remember, I know it's a while back, of making that change? And the reason I say that is for a lot of people, as they start to either heal or move through that people pleasing part, there can be that kind of in between of like almost being pulled back into the people pleasing traits and just this inner dialogue of what's true for me and what's that people pleasing part of me. Do you remember much about that kind of transition?
You know, to be perfectly honest, I think one part of it, and whether or not this is good or bad, I'd got into a relationship, which I hadn't been in a relationship before. And I think even that in itself, obviously the fresh part of a relationship, you kind of just lose all your fucks given about basically anything other than your partner. And I just found that, like, even with sport, like as I said, I was lucky to play at a pretty high level of basketball for a long period of time. But within that space itself, I had a lot of disappointments, even at that top level. And over time, I just kept building up this resilience and mental kind of toughness around that, and just not letting setbacks affect me and whatnot. And I think after a bit of time, it kind of almost got to the point where I was like, well, it was almost like a feeling of just zero, like a lack of respect from the people I was surrounding myself with, or everyone really. It was kind of like, well, fuck, if I'm putting in all this time, I'm putting in all this effort, and, you know, I understand that setbacks and failures are part of the whole process, but I just got to the point where I was like, fuck, this is now just like a lack of respect. And it was almost like out of frustration. And then, yeah, I'm not too sure like how it all evolved, but it was very clear to me, like it was literally at the end of, or kind of like end of year 11. And coming into year 12, like even at school, it was very similar. Like I was always trying to be part of my friends group and very, as I said, concerned with other people's opinions. And coming into year 12, I just vividly remember not caring basically at all. Yeah, I don't know. It was just like a very liberating feeling, I think. And then even post year 12, just no longer kind of like taking the opinions of other people as seriously. Yeah, I haven't really explained that too well, but I'm not even too sure exactly like how it kind of evolved. But I guess though they were certain things that come into play for sure.
When you think about the anxiety that you used to have and at times still have, but manage much better, is there any, I guess, circumstances or thoughts or beliefs or behaviors that you think used to have a big impact on the anxiety? And what do you think's, you obviously mentioned meditation, but what else do you think might have contributed to that being much healthier now?
For sure, understanding the whole kind of thought process around focusing on only what you can control. I was always very much so like feeling a lot of stress or whatever around stuff from the past. Very much so always like a forward thinker, thinking about potentially what could happen, blah, 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 like all the outcomes that may happen that most of them genuinely didn't ever eventuate anyway. So I was never really present, I think. And I reckon that's why meditation allowed me to kind of step out of that a little bit. I was never really in the actual moment. I even remember like thinking, whether it was parties, whether it was holidays, whether it was whatever it may be, I would always think afterwards, like, I feel like I haven't even really got to enjoy any of that. I can't really remember like thinking at any point, like just being in the actual moment. So that was a big one. And I don't know, I think as part of that, like a lot of that stress and whatnot did come from the fact that a lot of the time I probably wasn't genuinely just being myself, which is the main part. And then when I had time to reflect or afterwards or whatever, it was kind of like almost trying to escape from, let's say when I like, even like when I was younger, if I would like drink or whatever, that was like a good time for me to then like actually just be myself. And then you go back to like what you had been doing previously, like the way you were kind of acting day in, day out. And it's like, fuck, you're trying to figure out which one was actually like the one that you felt better in or whatever. So that was a big part of it. And yeah, I reckon it was just coming down to the fact that I was never present. Like I was never actually in the moment and constantly thinking about stuff from the past or something from the future that either I couldn't change or hadn't even happened yet. So when I was able to shift that focus onto just enjoying the moment right now, but then also taking more control of like what I was doing instead of just going with the crowd and being a bit of a sheep.
Often when we struggle to be present, there's like a thought or a feeling or even a behavior that kind of takes us out of the moment. And because for a lot of us, we don't like being in our bodies. So we're kind of thinking away from it. When you consciously started to become more present, was there anything that came up? Did the anxiety get worse before it got better? Did you just kind of feel at ease? Like what? And again, whether you can remember back to that, but do you remember anything having to happen in order for you to feel more comfortable in being present?
I think one of the biggest aha moments, I guess you could say, was I moved to Melbourne after year 12 for basketball full-time for 2 years and felt like I was in a good position with basketball at the end of the 2 years. And then I had an ankle reconstruction. And at the time that was like just devastating, like borderline depressed after that because of the fact I'd gone from training for something multiple hours every single day and putting all my focus on that and not having any thought about basically anything other than sport itself. And then that year after I had the surgery, it was a very long, like super long recovery. I think it was like 10 months all up. But in that process, I'd always had this joy for obviously fitness, but also like physique competing, which I was so super fascinated with. And I always thought one day I'd love to give it a try because I was just very obsessed with learning so much about the human body and anything to do with strength and conditioning. And I did a physique competition that year. And that was one of those things where I was like, I kind of proved to myself that like, you really don't give a fuck because none of my friends were part of that kind of scene. I remember having this a little bit of anxiety and worry around the fact that like, oh, you know, when people find out, like I wonder what the response is going to be. And that's what kind of got me to the point where I just no longer, and I've said it already, but no longer gave a fuck because I'm like, I've just proven to myself that I'm happy to do something that I genuinely enjoy without having any worry about if people don't like it, then I don't really give a shit. But part of the thing that kind of helped in a way, which is almost a bit counterproductive, is the response was either nothing or like really positive. So I was like, I've kind of like had this worry this whole time about doing certain things and whatnot, but I had this injury and the whole fucking getting back to what I was starting before, I'm all over the place here. What that injury turned out to be probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me. So then that's when going through this personal development type time, particularly when it was super fresh and just starting to understand all these concepts of, law of attraction and all this type of stuff, I was thinking that really cemented in my head that everything happens for a reason and like what will be, will be. So I kind of like surrendered at that point because I'm like, all right, well, at the time, this seemed like the worst thing, but it's turned out to be one of the best things that's ever happened. So from here on in, if there are things that aren't exactly going my way, or there are days where I'm stressed about something and whatnot, me stressing about it, firstly, I can't control it anyway, so it's not going to make any difference. And secondly, even if it is something that I perceive as negative at the time, down the track, it could be a really good thing. And once I kind of surrendered to that, that's when it just gave me a lot more freedom and took a lot of the weight off my shoulders a bit. And as I said, don't get me wrong, there's definitely been periods where I have had like rough patches still like down the track, whether it be ending relationships or whatever, and then slipping back into bad habits and stuff like that, and having periods where I was probably, trying to just like numb myself and whatnot. And obviously periods like that tend to lead to, obviously it is anxiety and stress and whatnot, but it's kind of self-induced. And then that ends up being a bit of a vicious cycle anyway. So it was just a few different instances like that where it kind of reaffirmed to me that one, I need to put together a practice that genuinely allows me to take care of my mental health and take it seriously. Two, I need to be a lot more willing to like look at the areas of myself or the life that I have at the moment and be actually honest about it and be a lot more vulnerable about it, and make harder decisions or, have harder conversations and whatnot to not get myself stuck in this cycle that's going to lead me down the path of actually getting back to the point where I am just feeling stressed about everything because it's not like what I want or whatever. So there was just a number of instances that at the time felt shit, but have turned out to be quite good. So as I said, I think it was just a bit of a surrender moment, understanding that you can't just try and control everything and force everything. You just got to align your actions with whatever you say you want to do, or align the right energy with your actions, and then just kind of let it happen.
You spoke then of your like moving to Melbourne for basketball and your dreams and desires there, and you're obviously a big fan of basketball now. How's the energy for you around going and watching basketball regularly? And from what I can see, you've got a couple of really good mates in basketball. And
that being what was potentially a sore spot for you because of, the injury and that obviously having an impact for your career. Did you find you've had to go through your own surrendering and healing process to have a clean relationship to basketball, knowing that that was your dreams at one point?
Yeah, it's really funny. I've thought about this quite often, to be honest. I'll give you an example. So like when I made the decision to stop playing basketball, I don't even know if I touched the ball, but I definitely didn't play a game for 5 years straight. Like I went from playing multiple times per week, training 2 to 3 hours a day, 6-7 days a week. As I said, my only focus in life was basketball, to then not playing a game for 5 years. And I think, I eventually ended up, and my whole mindset around that as well was like, well, I don't want to do it at all if I'm not going to go all in with it. And that was kind of like a shitty approach to have as well. Like since then, I've, ended up playing a few seasons with some mates, and it's been really fun. And I'd still love playing when I do, but it's very weird. Like my partner Danielle and I, we go to the NBL. Like as you mentioned, I've got a number of friends that are in the NBL at the moment, and we head down to most of the Melbourne Phoenix games when they're in town, and like I never ever have the feeling of like, fuck, I wish I was out there, which is crazy. And I think that part genuinely comes from the fact that I don't know, like I'm not going to say that I didn't. Like I loved basketball. I still do. And I loved playing it. And I literally was just so passionate about it and so driven. But I almost got to the point where it was just a story I was telling myself, and I tied my identity around it. So I didn't ever have any expansion of my consciousness as to like what else was out there or what genuinely was more suited to what I enjoyed or what I loved. It was like, all right, this is what I'm doing. Fucking too far in now. I've tied my whole identity to this, and just like almost brainwashed myself as to the fact that that's what I wanted. And when I look back at it now, like all these disappointments, a lot of trying to please other people when it wasn't pleasing me, all this type of shit. As I said, I'm not going to say that I didn't enjoy it or it wasn't worth it or I wish I didn't do it, but like it kind of just proved to me that it never really was. Like it was more of an identity thing than a true proper joy for playing that for the rest of my life. Because yeah, that's something I've always found very weird. Like that initial few months was just depressing as really struggled with it. But then just got to this point where I was like, oh shit, I'm actually finding a lot of this enjoyment and passion in, obviously it was in the health and fitness space and building a business and eventually personal development and podcasting and stuff. And it became a lot more natural to me. Like it was still something I've had to work my ass off to build. But it was something that, like I said, with basketball, it was a massive grind, always a massive grind to get to the level where I was at. It wasn't like a natural talent thing at all. Whereas there was other things, like I said, which now I wake up in the morning and genuinely just love doing. It actually comes a lot more natural to me. It's more of like who I am. So very long answer to your question, but I don't really miss playing at all. But I still love the game of basketball. Like I still love watching, still really involved with it and whatnot. But it doesn't get to me at all. Like there hasn't been any moment where I'm like, I wish I had stuck with it and just come back to it. Yeah, not at all.
You mentioned Danielle there, your partner, and in your world, you've got the relationship, the podcast, the online training, the offline training, now moving into mindset, and you do a fair bit of work with the Keep It Cleaner girls as well. What do you find hardest about navigating 15 different balls?
Yeah, it's tough, but a lesson that I've learned over the past 12 months, and there was a lot of stuff, helpful stuff that came from doing work with the Momentum boys and stuff as well, for sure, is understanding that, and even like working with a mentor myself, and again, just doing further and further work through self-improvement and whatnot. It's understanding that it doesn't necessarily, like for me, in order for me to reach like this level of success that I want to get to, or have this impact that I want to get to, I've always been, ever since I was a kid with sport and everything, it's like, if I can work harder and do more than everyone else, then I'll continue to go up and up and up. I'll continue to level up. But I've learned that that's just not the case. And, at the end of 2022, or about halfway through, I did a big kind of stock take on what I was doing and what energy I was feeling while I was doing those things, and had a look at, again, a bit of a stock take as to like what I was doing on a daily or weekly basis, which had just become part of my identity that I may have spent a lot of years trying to build up, but it no longer served any purpose or whatever. And how to, like, with some perspective, how to look at how I can be a lot more productive in the areas that I do really enjoy without having to feel like I just need to be busy being busy. So, before we hit record, we're talking about this year and what I plan to do, it's like trying to be very disciplined with some structure to my week in order to be a lot more productive, but then also not let it just consume me, and obviously makes it a lot harder with relationship as well if you're constantly just your mind somewhere else. So using those tools like meditation and breath work and journaling and whatnot, but then also looking at how I can structure my week in a way where there are allocated days or times for certain things, and purposely blocking out periods of time for, time with Danielle, or Sundays where I want to block out where it's just Danielle and I, or still, something we've done exceptionally well since we've been together is like, we pretty much try and do a date night like every week. And it's still something that I absolutely fucking love. Like, it's never forced, but I think I've found that really important. Like, we both really look forward to it. And even if we've both had a busy week or whatever, we know we're going to have this time where we can just go and spend together, which is amazing. But yeah, I just had to look at things that I could cut out in order for me to move forward. So instead of having that mindset of adding more things in order to succeed more, it was like, what can I cut out? Where can I get some of my energy and time back from some things that I may be doing at the moment that I'm just kind of doing for the sake of doing, or because I feel like I have to, or because I just was too afraid to say no to doing or whatever. So that's definitely allowed me to free up more time, but then also a lot more mental capacity as well to really then focus in on the work that I'm doing at the time and be more productive.
It's you've mentioned the word a couple of times, but it's I think massively underrated. And it'll be interesting in your world with a lot of the fitness people, how the sports people, how they navigate after their careers, because identity is a really challenging thing that most people get stuck in. It's one of the things that really holds them back. And even the identity, you use the language busy being busy.
Yeah.
Is there anything for you, any story that comes up as you've navigated these changes into 2023 of like, do you find yourself called into trying to be busier again? Do you think it's filling a void? Do you find it, judgment or story around kind of being less busy?
For sure. Even with stepping into the mindset stuff and the mentoring and whatnot, like, firstly, it took a little while for me to even take the jump there because I've never been a mindset coach or whatever, and even when I put out content now, I try and make the effort to mention it. Like, look, I'm not a qualified mindset coach or anything like that. I'm just genuinely sharing my experiences, having conversations that I've been having now for years that I've then firsthand seen the impact these conversations have had. But stepping into that space, it was like, it took me a while to jump into that because I was like, well, I'm known. It's kind of like just being a cycle. It went from being a basketballer to being fitness to now this. It's like, all right, well, although my passion for health and fitness is obviously still there and I continue and I want to do work in health and fitness space for the rest of my life, it's like, all right, well, a lot of your friends now, a lot of social media following or audience on the podcast came about because of the fact that you are personal trainer, online coach, blah, blah, blah. So it took a bit of dropping the ego a little bit, thinking about the fact that like, all right, if I step into the mindset space, what are people going to think? Or will people listen or whatever? Or will they then stop following my fitness content? And all these little questions that in the end of the day are just ridiculous. But I still do find that like even now this year, trying to structure my weeks where I'm only personal training, ideally at this stage, Monday to Wednesday, and most likely still doing pretty similar amount of hours. But even thinking to myself then, I'm like, well, fuck, if people know that I'm only doing PT Monday to Wednesday, and usually up until now, I've been booked out throughout the whole week and I'm always busy training and I'm always posting stories in the gym and stuff. Are people going to start to think that like I no longer, want to do as much fitness? Will I still get as much interest on my app? Will I still get as many, leads or engagement through my fitness content? Because people might think I don't take it as seriously now. It's like all these weird questions, but there definitely has been a bit of that come up. But then I think, through the inner work and stuff that I've done over the last few years in particular, I feel like I've been able to navigate that okay. But it is a constant thing, I think. And a lot of it is kind of like subconscious stuff. Like, as you said, there'll be days now where, I've ticked off the high priority tasks that I wanted to tick off for the day. And I've got a few hours where I'm just sitting around or fucking watching something stupid on YouTube or whatever it may be. And there's always that little voice going like, you could be doing something different at the moment, or you could be working on this, or you're wasting your time and stuff. But I've definitely gotten a lot better at that over the last few years, I think, to the point now where I can, have those focus hours or whatever and then be able to actually switch off a lot more. Like going on a holiday, for example, in the past, there's like I obviously love spending time away and traveling and stuff, but it used to do my fucking head in, like no structure and knowing that I'm not working at all or I'm not training as hard and stuff really used to play on my mind a lot. And it gets to the end of the trip and I'd be like, well, fuck, I've just kind of been a bit of a lose-lose there. Like I haven't really enjoyed any time off, but I've also spent a lot of the time probably either being annoying to my partner or, still not doing any work either. So whereas now I can kind of have those days where I switch off or go away and have my little focus hour or half an hour in the morning or just meditate and do some breath work or whatever and be fine. Like I'm much better at kind of switching off now than what I ever used to be, for sure.
So as you kind of move into 2023, and I think from what I've seen anyway, it was a solid 12-month evolution for you last year. How do you see your year differently this year than say previously, whether that's the way that you plan for the year, whether that's kind of the way that you look ahead? Like what's this process early in January like for you as you look into this year with, as I said, kind of navigating lots of different business opportunities, relationships, your own health and fitness, things like that?
The most important part for me has been, as I said, looking at what I can take away so I can narrow the list of things that I'm really focusing on so I can actually focus, because otherwise it's really not productive and getting pulled in too many different directions. And the last couple of years, I feel like that has been the case. Just being pulled in too many different directions. But yeah, so narrowing down what I'm kind of focusing on. I always like to do a bit of a planning process, whether it is start of January or I typically like to do it a few weeks before the end of the year and do a bit of a reflection, map out some short and long-term goals and get really clear on those for the year. But I think one thing I really want to focus on this year is just having how do I word it properly? Like having the integrity to have the same energy throughout the year, regardless of what's going on. So I want to try and get a lot better at being more neutral with everything. So, I've set these aspirations and goals for myself. I know what the quality of my coaching app is. I know the impact I can have with the mentoring stuff. I know that I have these goals and aspirations with the personal training or, potentially opening a facility side of things and what I'd like to achieve out of the year with the relationship with Danielle and whatnot. And I want to try and detach as much as possible from outcomes and get a lot more neutral. So obviously still recognizing and acknowledging any wins and success that I have along the year. But I don't want to, I'm trying to figure out how to put it. Like I don't want to, one, get disappointed with certain things that don't go the way I expected them to go. But then also like not limit myself as to where I think the ceiling is. So if I can kind of detach myself from specific numbers, for example, like I've set goals for like the podcast, for example, of how many downloads I'd like per week and per month. But I also don't want to attach myself too much to that because I know realistically I could blow that out of the water. And I feel like if I'm so focused on that, then a lot of my subconscious efforts are all based off these numbers I've set for myself. So, I mean, there's a fair bit of planning that's gone into the year. But at the same time, quite open to just kind of, as we said before, letting it happen, what will be, and just trying to carry the same energy throughout the year as much as I can. And then also like probably protect my energy a bit more than what I have previously with, as I said, saying no to certain things, eliminating certain habits or actions and stuff that I may have kind of done like in the past, which haven't really served me at all. And really looking at how I can make the most of each day and each week in a way that's not too attached to outcomes.
There's a guy called Rich Davini who wrote a book called The Attributes. And one of the ways that he languages what you just said is how quickly you can return to baseline. So if you're up, not getting caught up in your own story and drinking too much of your own Kool-Aid. And if you're flat and low, not spending too much time down there, just coming back up to baseline. And as your world improves, your baseline may rise as well. Sure. And that's obviously a cool place to be, but just like it's scary. And I've been there, which I think you're aware of. And, at both ends, I've been drinking way too much of my own Kool-Aid and I've been way too dark at the same time. And just, if you don't have that understanding of where your baseline comes, it's so easy to get lost in it. So
as
I
you
like
said just
that.
then, like the I had this conversation, as I said, fortunate enough now to be starting to do a bit of this mentoring work, which I'm absolutely loving. And I'm learning a lot myself as well, like by having these sessions with other people. And had a conversation with a guy yesterday about like energy frequencies, for example. And we're talking about his business. And, I was using an example of like, if he currently sells his package, he's in media. So if he currently sells his package at like here and he gets an offer for something here, it's like trying to explain to him that, you can't then allow the fact that like you've been offered this to be like a fucking massive outlier to the point where you can't even believe yourself, because then all your actions and your beliefs are still at this level here. So you're going to come back down. So it's like trying to, as you said, not let the ego get the better of you, but continue to raise the standards and raise that level of neutral, I feel, or raise that, what do you call it? A baseline.
The baseline, raise the baseline.
Yeah, for sure.
Mate, we could talk for hours, and I would probably want to. So we'll probably get you back on for a third gig later in the year. But for those people who want to check out your work and your podcast, where's the best spot for them to find you?
Probably the two best places. Yeah, it's podcast, the fitness and lifestyle podcast, either Apple, Spotify, basically anywhere you can listen to podcasts. And then Instagram is probably the easiest one. So DJK Fitness, I put out a lot of content on stories, and you can find a website and email list and all that stuff through the Instagram. But yeah, those two, I'm pretty consistent with content on both.
And if you're in Melbourne, go and train with the big fella if he's got room for you down near Port Melbourne.
Monday to Wednesday.
Monday to Wednesday now.
Yeah.
No Thursday or Friday. And if you're not in Melbourne, join his online community, which he does the programming for me, which I thoroughly enjoy. Mate, good to have you back on, and keep doing the good things that you're doing.
Appreciate you having me on, man. I genuinely really did enjoy the chat. And as you said, we could just talk for ages. So you have to come back on mine as well. We'll tee another one up soon.
Hey, Naz.